whatever it is, where there's these hominins that look human. They've developed through evolution from the primate line. And they're walking around, they look human, but they don't necessarily have a human soul. They're still animal. And then at some point in time, God, when the body has evolved, God puts a human soul into the first man and the first woman. And Adam and Eve are within this hominin line, but they're the first humans.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to our platform. This is Option Forward. I'm Andrew. I'm always joined by the second half of the show, GQ Nesto. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. What I do?
You just real chill right now?
I am.
All right.
All cylinders running.
Had a great day?
Yeah, we did.
All right. Close some deals?
Yeah.
Another OnlyFans account opened up for you?
You already know. I got to get them toes out there.
For sure. Hey, but ladies and gentlemen, we're going to jump right into it this evening. We have a very, very special guest. I would say he represents, there's an old saying that where you start is not always where you finish, right? And what I mean by that is it's a gentleman, our guest today, started out thinking his career was going to be something and then felt a calling from a higher power, which led him to do another thing. And then that whole experience caused him to write some literature. He wrote a book, an amazing book that we're going to dive into today. But I'll let him get into the nitty gritty of all that. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Brian Cranley. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, let's dive into it. You are in Texas, correct?
Yes, I am currently in Fort Worth, but I am in San Antonio on the weekends, and I've lived in Houston. My parents are there. My family's in Houston, and I've lived in Austin. I've lived all over Texas. I love the state, but currently in Fort Worth.
All right, so we are a Dallas Cowboys fan?
Unfortunately, we are.
All right. Uncle Jerry got you.
I wouldn't say unfortunately. We're just a little delusional. That's all.
The stadium's nice.
Yeah.
Stadium's nice. All right. Let's dive into it, man. I know I did a little research on you. I read your bio and stuff like that was sent over. Read a little bit of your book. I haven't completed it yet, but that's something that I'll probably do this weekend. It seems to be a good read thus far, but I noticed that I believe you did your undergraduate at Texas A&M, correct?
Yeah, biomedical engineering at Texas A&M.
Okay, so what was college life for you?
College was great. I was trying to go to med school, and my dad talked me into doing a engineering degree, so I'd have something to fall back on if I decided not to do med school, which is exactly what happened. I just decided not to do medicine, and so I went into medical devices because of my degree in biomedical engineering. So I kind of realized I liked the sales side of it all, but it's been an awesome career working with medical devices from college till now.
All right, and what kind of, specifically, what kind of medical devices are you working with on a daily basis? What you're producing? What are you doing?
Yeah. So it's called a spinal cord stimulator. It looks like a pacemaker, but it stimulates the actual spinal cord. The doctor puts in these wires in the epidural space, so it's right behind the spine. And when you turn it on, it makes like an electric block for chronic pain, for back pain and leg pain. My company's called Nevro, Nevro. I've been there for about 11 years, and I don't know, it's been awesome. It's kind of neat being around tech and helping patients and working with doctors. It's kind of a good mix.
So is it easy to say that device lets patients do the Dougie?
I don't think he knows what the Doug
Is less patience what?
No. I'm just saying.
But
like,
you got to explain. He doesn't know what the Doug is.
So basically, what I'm saying is it easy to say that device that you guys sell gives the patients the ability to just, do a little wiggle, just dance a little bit, feel a little bit free again.
Well, it's funny because the old ones actually buzz, like you turn them on and they buzz the patient. And so you could make them, you could crank it up and make it buzz all over the place. But ours now, there's no sensation to it. You don't feel anything.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
That's kind of cool.
So no breakdance Olympics for that guy.
Yep.
All right.
No breakdance.
But no, okay. So after you graduate, Texas A&M, what did you do after that? What was the path? What happened then?
Yeah. So after Texas A&M, I went and worked for about 2 years at a company called Cyberonics. It was a simulator for epilepsy for people with seizures. And then I felt like what you guys were saying, like a higher calling to ministry. And so after working for 2 years, I went to the seminary for 5 years where I studied philosophy and theology and got a degree there, but ultimately decided not to enter full-time ministry. But that education kind of stuck with me. And so I've been kind of thinking about that stuff and continuing to study on my own afterwards. And so the two degrees, the biomedical engineering on the one side and the philosophy theology on the other side, are really what came together to make this book happen.
Wow. I got a question to ask you though. So I come from a long history of pastors and preachers all on both sides, my mother and my father's side of the family, right? And I often heard stories of men going to seminary, right? You go in and you're full of this power and this enthusiasm. And then when you get hit with all this knowledge and information that you didn't necessarily know upon arrival, you stop believing. Is there any truth to that?
I think there is, man. I saw some of that because I think you get the knowledge, you get to hear the theology, but you also see the inner workings of the church, which is made up of humans, and it's not always pretty. And so some people leave, I think, kind of disillusioned. Maybe they had this idealistic vision of the seminary and the people there, that everybody's floating around on clouds and acting perfect, but it's a bunch of humans, as always, and sometimes that's scandalous and people fall away. Some people, I think they run away, 'cause it's scary, and you get all kinds. You get people that do really well, and you get people that struggle. So I think there's some truth to that, but it's for a multiple, variety of reasons.
Was there any restrictions, like you couldn't drink or you couldn't hit the club after the seminary, or like on certain days, like Thursday Tuesdays, was it Thirsty Thursdays or Thursday Tuesdays, whatever it is? Like, were you locked up or what? How was it?
The seminary I went to, no. I mean, it was on the west side of Houston, and you could go out. You're not supposed to go to the club, but you could go, have a drink, as long as it was in moderation. There wasn't any lockdown rules. If you go to a Catholic religious order, then it's a lot more locked down. But if you go to regular seminary, they'll go have a drink, whatever.
So at no moment you came in there and you were a little hungover on the next day's class.
I mean, I'm not saying that.
I love it. No.
I'm just
if you had the opportunity to choose to go or not to go, would you go, or you would stay?
Go where?
To the seminary again.
Well, I completed it. I mean, I just didn't go to ministry, but I completed the seminary, and they were kind enough to let me finish the last 3 or 4 classes from afar, but I finished the degree. And man, I'm telling you, it was awesome. I thought it was awesome. It was an education that changed me, the way I think, kind of forever. And I'm grateful for it. I think a lot of people should go if they're thinking about it, just because even if you end up leaving, it still kind of changes you for the better.
Is it easy to say that your game with the baddies has gone a lot better? Like you can grab her by her hand, look at her deep in her eyes, and be like, this things are going to get better with me, or something along those lines?
No, going to seminary doesn't usually go over well with the baddies.
No, I was just saying, because, now, like, all those mega churches, they got the baddies, and, they definitely, they got the tight end as the pastor, they got a lot of Rolls Royce and G-Wagons in the parking lot. So, I mean, it's a vibe, right? You got Green Day as a musicians and stuff, like.
That's true.
But no,
speaking of it.
No, go ahead, Brian.
Have you guys seen that religion business documentary?
It's on Amazon. I think I've seen it, but I didn't click on it.
You still got to pay for it, but I think it's worth watching. It talks about the inner workings of the mega churches in a lot of different churches, but it talks about kind of how the money works and how the nonprofit organization is pretty opaque as far as like transparency on what the money's going to. But it's an interesting look at the kind of current condition of the American church.
Yeah, no, and I think, speaking of that, I think I feel like it's very hard to kind of keep that whole situation in line where it's actually being, prosperous to the community and not the board members and the pastor. Because I just feel like, greed is just, no one's prone to greed, and it's unfortunate that you have all these churches, even, the established churches that, have all these tithes and different types of donations, but then, where is it really going? Where is the actual progress reflecting? And, most of them say, they have a P&L that makes no sense, and somehow they want more and more. And I mean, think about like, I think there's certain religions that you got to give like 10%. Like, fuck that. Like,
that's your religion too, bro.
No.
That's
no, bro.
Too, though, bro.
The Catholics, they give you just pass that little tray. Just keep it passing. Don't look at it and don't make eye contact.
No, man. But that's not that's not a denomination type thing. That's if you're in,
But I think some get in your paycheck though. They talk to HR.
But they go in and make allotments for you. Like, no, bro. Like
they go in your workday application.
This is not about tithes and offering, man. We didn't bring Brian here to talk about that. But Brian, hey, tell us about your book, man. You did a thing, right? So tell us what encouraged you, what led you to write the book, and what is it about?
Yeah. So after I left the seminary, I kind of fell away from the faith for a little bit. I just kind of felt like I was running away in a sense. And so the education stuck with me. But I wasn't really, thinking about it a lot. And then slowly but surely, God just has a way of calling you back. He just doesn't quit, which is nice. He keeps calling you even though you run away. And so he just kept working on me. And one day I was watching this YouTube video from Fermilab, and it was talking about the first moment of the Big Bang and what happened. And the way they described the science was exactly the same way that the philosophers and theologians from my education talked about God. And I thought, man, this is kind of like the aha moment. I thought God maybe wrote his image into the science of the universe. And so that's what started the book out, and has led to just some pretty awesome conclusions, but they're all in the book, and I think it's fascinating stuff that I continue to think about today.
Nice. And in your opinion, what do you think was the breaking point where you said that you dropped off? Like, was it stress? Was it not feeling the forward momentum in life, or was it just you were overstimulated with so much God, so much religious factors in your life, or what do you think it was?
Well, no, for me it was Catholic seminary, so you had to commit to celibacy for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh man, that's gonna be. It was just.
That makes any dude turn around. I mean, like, nah, like,
and stuff. So that's kind of what it was for me. I was just like, man, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can commit to it, even if I want to. But, it doesn't mean that God wasn't calling me. I just felt like it was a difficult thing to say yes to.
He was calling you a little too strongly.
Was there any moment that you kind of, like you mentioned the whole science aspect and the philosophy coming together, but was there an interesting story that put those two things together that kind of gave you your aha moment?
Well, it was really that YouTube video that put them together, that kind of the way they were talking about the Big Bang. The YouTube video I saw was talking about the Big Bang, and the way they described it was, I'll give you the details. They were talking about at time equals 0 in the Big Bang, mass and energy were the same thing. And so you have this perfect unity of matter and energy, and everything is one. In the very first moment, everything was one. The entire cosmos was together, in a size smaller than an atom. And it was all one and the same thing. And that's the exact same way that the philosophers described God. It's a teaching called the divine simplicity, where they talk about the essence of God is the simplest thing in the universe. It's just one simple thing, and everything's the same in God. There is no differentiation. And so when we talk about God is love and God is power and God is justice, it's different in our minds and it's different the way we look at it. But in reality, justice, power, love, omnipotence, eternity, infinity, those are all the same thing in God. And it's kind of hard to understand, but God is so one. He's so perfectly one that every attribute about him is the same. And so when I heard the universe was like that and God was like that, I thought, oh my goodness, God stamped his image on the science of the universe at time equals 0. And I just thought that was absolutely mind blowing. So I scoured the internet, looked for someone who had said it before, and no one had said that exact thought. So that's when I decided to write the book, even though I hated writing.
So does that mean you chat GBT it and put those thoughts together and just say, write me a book, or you actually had like, Dear Diary, like today, and then put that together?
I'm proud to say I ground it out, man. I would probably use ChatGPT today to write the second book, but I actually wrote and I edited it, 29 times and tried to make it work. But ChatGPT is pretty freaking amazing. It was my research assistant, I will say that.
So in your opinion, what do you think is causing all these divisions with all these different churches? And do you think it's the content or the delivery?
Man, good question. It's a hard question. It's one I struggle with because I wish the church was one church. And I guess are we talking about Christianity?
Yeah.
Christian church? Or all religions?
Yeah, I'm saying all religions.
All religions?
Yeah.
All religions tough because you have some ancient ones like Buddhism and Hinduism that are really old and predate Christianity. But I think everyone has a piece of the truth, and I think everyone believes, theirs is the fullness of truth, just like I do. I believe my religion is the fullness of truth, but I think everyone has a piece of the truth, and so that's why there's so many religions, they splinter, but I think you just got to find what you think is the most truth, is the fullness of truth. And yeah, I think there's a devil out there, and I think he's trying to splinter the church, and I think he's doing a pretty good job of it with thousands of Christian denominations. But I do wish it was one church. I wish we had the awesome music and hospitality of the megachurch that mixed with the sacredness and the raw power of the Catholic Church. I wish that was all together in one, because I think it would be pretty unstoppable force. So it's a good question, man. I don't know what caused it and what continues to cause it. But
what do you think? What do you think will bring it together?
Man, I don't know. Jesus, I hope. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's been so long.
I think we're all hoping for that one.
Yeah, it's been so long. that we've been separated, and I don't know, people are pretty strong in their belief. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think will bring us together?
I think that the divorce is final, and I don't think we're going to be able to be put together. I think, in my opinion, I think it's the delivery, right? The delivery, and then add the aspect of, the access to how much access we have, and the type of problems we have. Because imagine, the disciples back in the day, they had TikTok. I'm pretty sure they would have a different perspective, right? And I think that because there's so many different perspectives and there's so many different, ideas floating around, and we're all going through similar problems to some capacity, but at the same time we're not, right? And I think that when you have a delivery, let's just say, for example, at the Catholic Church, right? You got the OG, and he's mumbling shit, and sometimes, they got them Indian ones that you can't really understand what he's saying. But then you compare it to the mega church, and then you got tight end, you got Gronk over there, saying something. So who are you gonna relate with more,
But I think it's two. I'll answer it in two ways. I believe that the gospel was introduced and Jesus walked this earth at the perfect time. I believe, that he knew that technology, AI, and all these things would be a problem, right? They can be a tool, right? So I don't want to say that these things are bad. Yeah. But I think if you introduce something, it's almost like teaching a kid. If I introduce something at infancy, it's more than likely those morals and those things that I'm pouring into my son, my daughter, my niece, my nephew are going to carry as they get older. So I believe that when Jesus walked the earth, it was a perfect time to introduce Christianity. Christianity is the religion. I believe more in a relationship. Another part of that is when you talk about the delivery, right? It says, you got Jerry Rice versus, what y'all call Parish Phillip or whatever, right? And I don't go to church for whoever's up there, like, because they can't save me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I don't attend. There's, like you said, in a sense, there's nothing that obviously there's things that they say that we can relate to. They're like, oh dang, I like the way you structured that. All right, it's kind of relating to something that I'm dealing with this week, but they can't save me. They have no authority over my soul. You know what I'm saying? I believe that's a direct connection between what I believe in, God and his son and the Holy Trinity, and myself. So I don't go to church because of some dude. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's Catholicism, whether it's Seventh-day Adventist, whether it's a missionary Baptist church, whether it's non-denominational, I go because I feel like that's where you go for praise and worship. And even though it doesn't have to be done there, I'm so thankful that I can go a couple of times and show my thanks, bro. But I think that's why I go, bro. I just go to show my thanks, bro.
Now let me ask you something, Brian. In your opinion, how do you connect your thoughts with your genuine self?
My thoughts?
Yeah, when we're talking about God, right? We have our thoughts, right? Yeah. We have our brain, but then we have this part of ourselves that is genuine, it's pure, it's unconditional. Yeah. It doesn't say no to anything. It's just, it goes with the flow. So how do you connect those two things?
Well, it's interesting because that's what I'm thinking about with book 2. My next book is the difference between your thoughts in your mind, and I don't know what you'd call it, like your intuition in your gut or your soul. I don't know what you call that. Maybe that's what you're referring to as your authentic self. But I have this interesting thing I've been paying attention to, which is sort of like you keep your soul in the state of reception, like openness, and you're listening, and you're kind of trying to find the peace and listen And so your thoughts are coming in, but you're filtering them through your I don't know what you call it, your gut, your soul. You're kind of filtering them. So I think that's what I've been doing lately. Is I love just reading. I love reading about everything. I try to switch books all the time, different topics. But I'm always like taking it in, and there's something that's happening where I'm filtering the knowledge through my gut or my soul to see what kind of stays. Almost like you're sifting for gold, and you see what remains after a while. And I don't know. I'm kind of working on it. It's a good question because I'm kind of working through that right now to write book 2. But I think there is a process to filtering your thoughts to keep them authentic and kind of keeping what is pure, keeping what's real.
But what if the knowledge could be a distraction to your purpose?
Go into that deeper. What do you mean by knowledge as a distraction?
Meaning, right? Once again, the excessive amount of data, right? And then and then there's your genuine self, right? There's because I think that if we're talking about God, right, we're supposed to surrender, right? And there shouldn't be no ifs or buts or anything, right? And you have this knowledge that it may connect the dots, right? But it doesn't necessarily fit the purpose of serving, the purpose of being genuine to following God's steps. So what do you feel about that?
Well, I think there's on one hand, you have just this immense amount of data that's available to us, and you can fill your mind with all kinds of data and information. And I think that could be a detriment, maybe what you're talking about, to your authenticity, your path with God. And then there's wisdom, which I think is knowledge that comes from God, which I don't think you can have too much of, and I don't think it's a hindrance. I think, that's what Solomon went for. And I think you can search for real wisdom, but then there's data and your phone, which is just constantly putting out input into your brain and is a total barrier to going deeper. So I think maybe there's a difference between the wisdom that we're looking for and just sheer amounts of social media data and information that's available to us today.
No, absolutely. Especially because if you see now, like, I don't know what device you may have, but, Apple and, all these new devices, right? But I was reading something about like how Apple is creating this whole little AI feature, which sometimes I feel like it's a little invasive because it's doing pattern recognition of the type of stupid shit that you think, and then next thing you fall into that little rat race, right? Where you're just going in circles of something that doesn't necessarily make sense, and it's a lot, in my opinion, and I speak for myself, that it's a lot harder to just let it go and continue your path. And I think that's the part that I feel like that's the chapter that I'm in my life, where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna just let this shit ride, even though sometimes I want to slap the shit out of people. But I just feel like sometimes investing time in something that you can't change, even though you want to be right, or even though you want to feel the satisfaction of being right, it just,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us? Hello? Can you hear us?
Hey,
okay,
I got you now.
Okay, good.
You were saying the rat race?
Yeah. So what I was saying is that technology now is finding pattern recognition to kind of put a narrative on your phone, right? And I think that's it's dangerous to some capacity, and that's why I feel like it's so hard to let certain things go. And then I was saying earlier, like that's kind of my journey right now, is that I'm just letting shit go. Like, even though you want to slap the shit out of people, you're just, sometimes you just have to just continue your journey, because as much as we want to believe that we have time, we don't. We don't have time. And unfortunately, is it easy to say, are you ready? Like, are you ready for the Lord? And I'm like, hell no. I mean, are you, Brian?
Yeah, no and yes and no. Is that a fair answer? I don't think you're ever ready, but I'm trying to give every day to him.
Well,
I'll go yes and no on that.
I got a question for you, Brian. So you know, in order to write a book, I'm pretty sure you wrote your book because you found something that you were passionate about, and you love to do the deep dives and the research and stuff like that. But was there ever a point, almost like being in seminary school, when you're introduced to so much information, did you ever get discouraged while writing the book? Who was your support system while you were writing this book?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you knew me in college, you knew I hated writing, and writing's super difficult. And so I got discouraged 100 times. But I'll tell you, there's two different discouragements. One is writing is difficult. Writing a book is very difficult, and it just is a slog. You gotta grind through it. But also, there's imposter syndrome, where you feel like, who am I to be writing about things about God? It's like you start facing your own demons, and you start feeling like you're not worthy to write stuff about that. And so I stopped a lot of times. I stopped for long periods of time. And thankfully, I'm glad I picked it back up. But it's a battle on two different fronts. The work of writing, and you're just battling your personal demons. And I'm kind of realizing, I think that's maybe a pandemic in itself. Is I think a lot of us feel shame when we try to do something for God or talk about God. I think there's a lot of shame because none of us are perfect. And I think that holds a lot of us back when I hope we'd be free to do more in the future.
No, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Because words are powerful. You don't know that somebody could be reading your book, and then next thing you know, they jump off the bridge. I mean, it sounds kind of dark, but it's funny how there's people that can take the truth in a very dark way. Because
sure.
I mean, I think with religion, and this is the part that I find it a little bit, I don't know. I just find it a little bit weird that there's so much guilt. There's so much guilt, and there's so much fear, right? Fear and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I, unfortunately, in my opinion, I feel fear and guilt is one of the things that keep you stagnant. So, in your opinion, why do you think that religions put that? Like, I mean, is it more on the lines of God is looking at everything, you better be cool, or you think it's more on the lines of keeping the population in control?
The opiate of the masses. I think religion can be used to keep the population under control, and it has been used to keep the population under control. But I still am an idealist in the sense that I think it's real, and I think there's a more worthy purpose for it. But yeah, the guilt and shame is an interesting one, because there's an interesting mix, because when you encounter God, you immediately feel humble and unworthy. And there's a little bit of natural shame that I think is good, where you're sinful. But then I think the enemy's there whispering in your ear, you're no good and you have nothing to give, and you need to stop, trying to do something good with your life and stop writing a book. And I think the enemy makes it just kind of evil and kind of twisted, and that's what stops a lot of people. So there's a natural kind of shame when you come into the presence of something holy, and then there's this evil kind, and I think a lot of us succumb to that second kind without knowing it, but I hope we don't.
Well, I think I mean, let's go back to the biblical days, right? When they're talking about Judas, how Judas, betrayed God for some coins, right? And then after he did what he did, he wanted to get a refund. He brought his Costco receipt. And he's like, no, I want it back. Like, don't do that to the homie, right? And then unfortunately, he couldn't take that shame, right? and obviously, killed himself according to the biblical, the story behind it, right? And in my opinion, I think that was a very dope thing that he did. Not necessarily the suicide aspect. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in a way of like he paid the biggest price you can pay, which is your life, right? And I feel like
himself.
Yeah, and I feel like he would have been more of a dick if he was just riding around and just doing what he did, and then just being cool, like being in the crowd and just eating some popcorn. So I just think that shows character in that regards, because once again, I mean, he paid a price, right? And I think that a person that actually does something bad and actually has some sort of remorse, it's an opportunity for them to come back and be better. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. Yeah, I think we're trying to figure out what the internal motivation of Judas was when he killed himself. That's an interesting take, that he was, he thought it was just to kill himself. But I think usually what the story is Judas versus Peter, where they both betrayed Jesus. And the problem with Judas was he despaired that, he listened to that evil, there is no hope, there is no redemption. And he despaired and thought there's no hope for him, where Peter finally repented and asked for forgiveness and came back. And so the lesson is to never lose hope and to never despair. But that's an interesting take on Judas. Where'd you hear that? Where'd you get that one?
No, I was just thinking that right now. I was just, I just thought about that, because if you really think about it, I was like, I don't want a homie like Peter. You know what I mean? I don't want, like, that dude was hella fake in my face, talking about let's squabble. I got you. And then when shit got down, he punked out, Yeah. So I mean, I just think those two takes are very similar, but then at the same time, what you just said makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, he redeemed himself, right?
Yeah. Well, we all punk out on Jesus. I mean, we all punk out. And we're all Peter, we're all Judas. The question is, how do you respond after you punk out? And he offers forgiveness and mercy like he always does. Do you accept it, or do you despair and say, no, I'm not worthy, and reject it?
Okay, but then okay, so we have that narrative. But in your opinion, does that still make Judas what it's portrayed to be, like the narrative that they have behind him, even though he paid the price?
Paid the price with his life? I don't know, man. That's a great question. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say with any kind of authority, like I know, what his thoughts or his internal motivations were, or where he ended up. Everybody says Judas is in hell, but I guess we don't know for sure.
I mean, because the dude, I mean, he was kicking it, right? He was part of the 12 disciples. He was putting in work. You know what I mean? So it's not like he was out there and then just randomly just betrayed Jesus. So, my whole point with that is because I think there's people worse in the world that are still alive, and they can continue to doing harm to others, and I feel like sometimes, we need those type of mistakes, right? We need data. Mistakes are data. It's an opportunity to be better. It's an opportunity to grow spiritually, morally, you name it. So I think that when you put religion into play in these type of topics, I feel like it's so, frowned upon, or I don't know. What do you guys think?
Right.
I think it's a great hypothetical question, but I believe that's like some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. But I mean, like we're up here talking about where's Judas? Like, come on, bro. Like, I want to do like Judas, not like Peter. Like, what? Like, I mean, there's no knock to you, but yeah, I wouldn't even entertain that. Just it's a good topic. All right, good job. It'll be some clickbait or something like that. But like, all right, cool, that worked. All right. But no, because we're really getting away from, why we're talking with Brian, man, and then it's the whole relationship between science and spirituality. Can it coexist? And we had talked about this earlier, but I would like for you to share your kind of like your thesis statement on the Garden of Eden and how you believe God created Adam and the whole evolution aspect of things.
Yeah, so one of the things I've always been fascinated with is how science of evolution and human development can coexist with the Garden of Eden stories in Genesis. And I think a lot of us grew up hearing the Bible stories of Genesis, the 6 days of creation. Adam and Eve appeared, kind of formed out of clay or whatever as fully grown adults. And so when you're young, you just assume that means, hey, God created the earth in 6 days, 24-hour periods, and that's what it is. But then when you learn about science and the age of the earth and the distant starlight, that the universe might be 13.8 billion years old, it starts kind of putting forth this different narrative. And sometimes it's hard to kind of mix the two in your mind. And a lot of us keep them separate and kind of keep them separate, or they pick one or the other. I'm either going with faith or I'm going with science, and it's one or the other. And so I really wanted to try to do both and bring them together. And so I'll talk about a retelling of the Garden of Eden. And what I talk about is there was these hominins in Africa 250,000, 300,000 years ago, whatever it is, where there's these hominins that look human. They've developed through evolution from the primate line. And they're walking around, they look human, but they don't necessarily have a human soul. They're still animal. And then at some point in time, God, when the body has evolved, God put the human soul into the first man and the first woman. And Adam and Eve are within this hominin line, but they're the first human. And they're miraculous in the sense that they're human, they have a human soul, but their body is natural in the sense that it evolved from the primate line. And so I just talk about how they can go together, how Adam and Eve and the story of creation can coexist with the science of evolution and what we know from paleontology and from history. And I just think it's kind of cool to think about, but it's not easy for people to think about because people are pretty strong in their beliefs. But I think it's an important topic to discuss, especially with where science is today.
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with that thought process. I read a book, I forget, I think it's called The Unseen Realm or something like that. And what they talked about, what they discussed in that book was what was called imagers. So we all created in the image of God, but like you said, that the imagers were like Adam and Eve. It was something along the lines that Adam and Eve weren't the first, right? But they were, like you just said, they were the first with a soul. So there was mankind of some shape, form of
some kind,
inhabiting the earth or the land at that time, and God came down and changed things because of, man, it can even go deeper than that. So it was even like the council, right? If you look at Genesis and they talk about God meeting with the council, right? So the book that I was reading also said along the lines that he had placed his sons, right? It's like in this book it said like Jesus wasn't God's only son, so he had sons, and he had like almost like Greek mythology. So he put them in charge, and he didn't like what they were doing with their creation. Like, all right, you create your people, my other son, you create your people, and we're gonna monitor this. And he didn't like the way things were going, so he stepped in, like dads do, right? He stepped in and it was just like, all right, bet I'm just go with Adam and Eve, and this is how we're gonna write this passage. But yeah, no, I've definitely heard of something along the lines of what you just discussed. But what do you think though? Like, do you can it coexist? I believe you just answered that, but like for me, I would say I never try to get into the weeds of everything. You know, like nowadays, right? You get all sorts of media, all sorts of information come across your phone, your television screens, or even the people that you come across, right? But I'll be a fool if I took you at your word for everything that you said. So I believe that we have a responsibility we owe it to ourselves and to our family members to do our own research and come up to our own conclusion. But I just never really looked at it like, oh man, like faith and science, nah. Like I just reserve some of those how did this happen questions to the day I meet my creator. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that's kind of like my hobby. I kind of enjoy I love looking into science, and I think, somebody said there's like 2 books. God wrote 2 books. He wrote the scripture and he wrote the book of nature. And they both reveal him in a different way, but they both reveal God. And so my kind of interest is how do those 2 books go together? Because truth is truth is truth. And if it all comes from the same source, then it's gotta kind of come together. And so I agree with you. There are some things that will only be answered, when we get to heaven, see God face to face. But I'm just kind of fascinated with trying to figure out what we can right now. Only because science has come so far. We've learned so much in modern science with like the Large Hadron Collider that's recreating the conditions of the Big Bang, and paleontology finding all kinds of new fossils recently, and our James Webb Telescope that can shoot way out into the distant space. It's just kind of a cool time to be alive and to see what we're learning.
So as a disciple of God, and your ability to have a superpower, what would it be?
You hear me?
Yeah, Brian, you good?
You're good. Hello, Brian, you're good? Brian?
Hey.
Can you hear
You
us? Yeah. Did you hear the question?
No.
Oh,
no, I didn't hear the question.
Okay. So, as a disciple of God, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. As a disciple of God, if I could have a superpower, I guess it'd be knowing the future. I don't know why. I would like to know what's going to happen. I could play some good bets on the Super Bowl.
You're trying to...
No, Brian doesn't like to be surprised. Like, nothing wrong with that.
I want to know what's going to happen. What do y'all think? What's your answer?
I'll let you go, because I got to think about that one.
I wouldn't want one.
You wouldn't want a superpower?
I wouldn't want a superpower. And this is my theory behind not having a superpower. There goes a big responsibility. And I feel like
you hate responsibility.
Hell yeah, I do. And I just feel like no, because think about it.
Goldfish.
I'm just saying, like, you fuck that up, like, you know what I mean? It's a big responsibility,
okay,
especially
Superman.
Especially because I mean that's tough,
But what if nobody has to know about it? You could just keep it to yourself.
I ain't trying to do all that. You know what I mean? Like I'm down to serve, but I'm not down to fucking, make a huge impact in whether they live or die. Right?
No, I'm sure. But you have to use your superpower to save humanity? No,
because it wouldn't. Then now you're calling yourself God.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So why is it a big deal?
No, because what I'm saying, a superpower. What I mean, a superpower is being able to be a disciple, right? You're contributing to the cause, whatever the cause, may be in your opinion, and you're basically excelling at that. So you want to make sure that what you're doing, either gives hope to humanity or is probably going to destroy it, depending on what you do.
Okay.
Well said.
Okay. You're just so philosopher today. This guy, he's grounded, everyone. He's sober. This is soberness, though. This is what we get.
Let's hear your superpower.
I don't know. That would have to be something I just got to think on. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I. No, I don't know, man. I'll have to come back on that one. Yeah, definitely.
Hey, Brian, I have a question now. Speaking of superpowers.
Yeah.
So on your next book, right? And I think it's easy to say that there's a wording for it. I don't know if you know it, but obviously, just like the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, you know, they all have this way of writing, right? Where somehow it's kind of like that picture of Jesus, right? When you see that picture of Jesus where you look at Jesus and no matter what part of the room you still see Jesus, you know, that it somehow follows you, right? So I think that's the type of writing that all these books have, right? They have some sort of way to relate, no matter who you are, no matter what denomination that you believe in. When you read it, there's some sort of, you know, you relate to some capacity, right? So your second book, right? What way do you want to relate to your readers?
Yeah, so my second book, I really want to touch on the topic of experiencing God, like in the everyday. When you walk outside, how do you experience God? And I'm going to focus on the idea of peace, the experience of peace, because I think that's a good word that just kind of encompasses what it feels like to have God inside you and to kind of live in alignment with Him is a peace. And I think the world is, you know, we have a mental health problem today. We have an anxiety and depression problem today. And I think a lot of that comes from just focusing on ourselves and comparing ourselves to others with social media and this constant barrage of information coming in. But there's not like a lot of, like the ancients just used to walk outside, look at the world and think about it and talk about it. And I think that leads to more peace. And so I really want to focus on how do you experience God in the everyday? What's a simple step-by-step path you can take to experience God and experience His peace? So that's what the second book's going to be about. And I think it's going to be pretty cool and hopefully relatable, like you said, with the other scriptures, relatable to a lot of people over a lot of different generations and cultures.
But speaking of mental health, man, obviously it's an important topic.
Yeah.
What tips or what do you do to maintain or attempt to maintain? Because I believe that, like they said, you know, just because you believe in God, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have trials and tribulations, right? So, you know, right. Life happens. So what do you do to try to maintain your balance?
Yeah, good question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. But in chapter 1 of the book, I talk about authentic wonder, and I titled the book The Call of Wonder. It's called The Call of Wonder because I think wonder is the word that kind of summarizes what the theologian experiences when they experience God, and then what the philosopher experiences when they're looking at the world and trying to figure it out, and what the scientist, whether you're atheist or not, what they experience when they look out at the stars or at, you know, biological life. I think wonder kind of encapsulates that. And so I talk about authentic wonder as compared to the manufactured type of wonder from CGI movies or social media, where it's, you know, it's all kind of an artificial type of wonder. Or I also talk about wonder from the imagination, like when kids are playing games and they're imagining, and adults do it too. They imagine the future. Imagination can be a helpful tool, but it's not like this real awe and wonder. And I think, you know, we need to be outside more. Obviously, we need to be off our phones more, but I think we need to be outside more and looking at these big realities. I think that leads to mental health. We just need to look outside of ourselves and stop constantly thinking about ourselves and comparing our lives to everyone else. So that's what I do. I try to take a 15-minute daily walk, and I try to not constantly compare myself to others and think about myself all day long. I think that helps, but would love to hear your thoughts on it.
You want to go first? Go for it. All right. What I typically do, man, thanks for returning that. And I'll share a couple of things that I do. So one of the things I think I got from my cousin who passed away not too long ago, but he used to always text me and say like no rap music, no hip hop music, nothing like that before. I think his was like 10 o'clock. I get up a little early. Normally I start my days around 3 a.m. And so typically what I've been doing for like the last, I would say almost month, I try to listen to like praise and worship music from the time I get up to 8 o'clock. Like I try not to, or I'll listen to some pastor, maybe Joel Osteen, or some pastor that I follow on YouTube or something like that. And I try to just feed myself with all kinds of positive energy, Christian-based positive energy. I'll put it that way, right? And then I meditate. You know, I have a little a little mat that I use, and I'll just sit there Indian style, and I'll focus on what I want to accomplish for the day. I'll focus on maybe getting all distractions out of my mind and asking God to clear my mind and clear my thoughts and to give me favor of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, and clarity and discernment. So I typically do that every day, and it's been helping. And it doesn't always work to the T. Obviously, life happens, right? And things, you get upset at times. But I think the important thing is the acknowledgement and accountability. I think you show accountability as a man or woman when you can realize it doesn't necessarily have to be a super sinful mistake, but sin is sin, right? But you acknowledge your mistake and you try to stop yourself from repeating those same things. You don't want your data to have the same thing on your Excel spreadsheet, right? It shouldn't be like the same offense, right? But if I can recognize that, then I think that makes me a better, I don't want to say a better person because I'm not better than anyone, but it makes me more aware. I'm more in control of my thoughts and my actions and my emotions. But yeah, that's typically what I do. What you do, G. Ernesto?
I'm a little bit more simple, a little bit more streamlined. I feel like I wake up every day and avoid putting myself in a box. I think with that simple action, you let your mind flow, you let your soul flow, you let a lot of things, flow a little bit better, because the whole intent is to grow, right? And if you're not growing, then you're being stagnant, and I think that once you become stagnant, that those anxiety levels kick in. And don't get me wrong, there's times that I want to light up a fat one, but I just I just try to let things go. If I let things go and I stop putting these imaginary boundaries in my thought process, then I'm more open to looking forward to the next day, because that's something that I feel like not a lot of people are excited about, especially when it comes on a Sunday, and then you got to wake up in the morning and be ready for Monday. Like I want to embrace life with grace and be excited for the next day and feel like the hours are not enough in a day.
I think also gratitude, bro, and being grateful, that really, really, really helps.
For sure.
I don't know how many times, and me and him, we used to chop it up like hours and hours on each day, but I would be so mad and so upset that I had to go to work. Like I was so upset that the next morning, you know what I'm saying? And then what I've done lately is I wake up and I say, thank God that I have a job to go to. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so many people who don't have that. Or, I want a new car, but thank God that I have this car and it still works. You know what I'm saying? So I start to look at what I would consider the not so great things, but the things that are necessities that we need to maneuver and get around during the week and during the month and during the year, to support our families and loved ones. Like, dude, I started to say, hey, God, like, thank you. Like, I know I was complaining like last week and the week before, but like right now at this very moment, like, like, thank you that I have this, but I still want better, right? But still, like, I'm thankful. I'm thankful. And I think that's why we work. Like, if you're not working to improve your situation, if you're not working to improve yourself, maybe internally, externally, then you're just existing, and that's not an option for me. I just don't want to be here. You know what I'm saying? I believe we all have a purpose, and I don't believe our purpose is what we do from 9 to 5. I believe we can use the 9 to 5 to serve our greater purpose, but your purpose is not what your occupational specialty. That's just my opinion.
Brian, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. But hey, Brian, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for your time, man. Please, what we normally do is we always leave the microphones open to our guests and ourselves to leave any parting words of wisdom with our listeners and with our viewers. And we're going to start with you today. But before you leave your parting words of wisdom, please let people know where they can find your book, where they can find you, your social media handles, websites, and things of that nature, so we can connect with you. You go, Brian. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so you can find me at, I do have a website, an author website at briancranley.com, which is BrianCranley.com. That's my author website. But you can find my book, The Call of Wonder, on Amazon, on BarnesandNoble.com, bookshop.org, and pretty much everywhere books are sold. Encourage you to check it out. My social media is kind of weak, but I'm on LinkedIn at Brian Cranley and on X, but I got to work on that. So I'll be hopefully building that out as I write book too. But man, I'm just really grateful that you guys had me on tonight, man. It's really enjoyable talking with you guys.
Oh man, we thank you. Thank you for your time. GQ Nesto.
Yeah.
I just want to say, thank you, Brian. I hope our listeners enjoy this conversation. I think it's easy to say that sometimes having these conversations have to be very formal, and that's not what I'm about. Open conversation. I mean, it's beautiful, because that's how it should be, especially when you're talking about things about God. You have a perspective, I have a perspective, and I think that's the part where that's the beauty of it, that we can we can talk about it and not get so personal about it. So I hope our listeners enjoy this conversation, and we definitely would want to see you again once you got that book going, or if you got something cooking, just hit us up.
That'd be awesome. Let's do it again.
And I would just say this, man, like Nesto just hit on, we can have a difference of opinions and perspective, but it's all about the respect. And as a man, as a woman, I respect you. You know what I'm saying? You can be from the left, you can be from the right, you can be atheist, you can be Protestant. I respect you because you're still God's creation, right? And you're a human being. But I thank you very much, Brian, for this wonderful conversation. We got to do this in person next time. We're gonna have to get you to, put some nickels or coins in your piggy bank and fly on out here to California, man. We look forward to you. You know what I'm saying? But
awesome.
But definitely,
definitely,
man. We'll see what that Riz is like. That gospel Riz. We'll take you out or something like that. Put you to the test. But we thank you for your time, listeners and viewers. We love you and we thank you, and we see you guys next time. God bless. Peace.